PNR Networks is a member of Patreon. Show your love for our shows by joining our ongoing fundraising campaign and get some fantastic perks in return. Check it out and become a Patreon sponsor. You can sign up at patreon.com, patreon.com/PNR Networks. And thanks for your support.
This podcast is a member of the Blueberry Network. Blueberry. No E's. That's Blueberry, BLUBRRY.com. Blueberry.com.
This podcast is a proud member of the Lamb Podcasting Network. Find the network at largeassmovieblogs.com.
It's Kim versus TC in the battle of the lists.
My list is better.
My list is better.
My list is better.
No, it's not. My list is better.
Kim or TC, who has the better list? From Subject Cinema, this is Front Row 5 and 10 with Kim Brown and TC Kirkham.
Hey guys, welcome to another week here of Front Row 5 and 10, brought to you by the good people that bring you Subject Cinema. That would be me and him. The me part being Kim Brown.
And the him part being TC Kirkham. Are you sure we're the good people?
Yes.
Okay, just checking. This is our list show. We do lists every week on this show. And sometimes it's 5 and 5, and sometimes it's 10, which is why we call it Front Row 5 and 10.
Yep.
If you'd like to contribute an idea for a list and get your name on the air, and maybe a small prize, front row at PNRNetworks.com. I picked this week's list.
You did.
So that means you get to start. We're doing 2 5 lists this week, both of them involving films from this year. I picked 5 films that I promised to see this year that I'd never seen. 4 of them are classics, and the other one is an off-the-wall thing I just found. And the other one are the top 5 films that we're going to try and talk the other person into seeing that we've seen.
Yes.
This one's worrying me. Which one do you want to start with?
I think we should start with the ones we plan to see.
Okay. Why don't you get us started with your 5 films you plan to see in 2017?
Okay. Now, these, like TC mentioned, these are all films that we've never seen, or maybe have seen like a bit part of, because my first one I actually saw like maybe 5 minutes of, but I really want to sit down and watch the whole thing. My number 5 is a drama called The Cook, the Thief, His Wife, and Her Lover, which is a story of adultery and murder and passion and food. And it's got an amazing cast, including Helen Mirren. It just looks like a really twisted, kind of really good film. And I've heard a lot of amazing things about it. I've just never got around to seeing it. Mm-hmm. So that's why my number 5 is The Cook, the Thief, His Wife, and Her Lover.
My number 5 I need to see because, well, I have a deadline for it, too. I want to see it before the end of February because the live-action version is coming out in March, and I haven't seen... I want to be able to say I've seen the classic version before I've seen the new version. My number 5 is 1992's Beauty and the Beast from Walt Disney. I've never seen Beauty and the Beast. I've seen bits and pieces of everybody's seen Be Our Guest and all that stuff. But I've never actually sat through the whole film. And I love Disney films for the most part. There have been some clunkers over the years, but every studio has clunkers. Mm-hmm. Especially when it comes to animated films, every studio has clunkers. So this was the film that started, that kept the ball rolling after The Little Mermaid, which I've also never seen, and turned Disney back on their good gears when it came to animation in the 90s and beyond. With the voice of Robbie Benson, correct, as the Beast? Mm-hmm. And who does Belle? Judy?
I can't think of her name.
I can't think of her
now,
name either.
Sorry.
And of course, Jerry Orbach, Angela Lansbury, and a cast of great people. I'm very much looking forward to the new live-action version with Emma Watson playing Belle, and I think that's going to be fun. But I made up my mind. I finally need to sit down and see this before the live-action one comes out. So that way I'll be able to have a comparison and contrast to see if they really are as good as everybody says. It was the first animated film ever nominated for Best Picture, so that's really something. My number 5, 1992's Beauty and the Beast.
Okay. My number 4 film that I'm going to see this year is another crime drama, but this one's a little different. My number 4 is El Mariachi.
Now, that was actually, when we were back in the early days of Subject Cinema, we did these resolution shows. We still haven't gotten to most of those movies, unfortunately. That was on my list at one point. And Eric Lyon from Cavebabble loves that film.
El Mariachi is the story of a mariachi player who is mistaken for a hired gun in Mexico, and stuff gets rapidly out of control very, very quickly.
It was the debut of Robert Rodriguez, right?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah.
And I know that a lot of people have always talked about this film as one of their favorites and how stylish it is. And I just never got around to seeing it, and I need to rectify that, and I'm gonna make an effort to do that this year. So my number 4, El Mariachi.
Yeah, I'll watch that with you because I'm not sure about the other one, but that one I am interested in seeing. My number 4, well, I have a whole... One thing I've talked about is we've hosted Subject Cinema now for over a decade, is that I have actually become a film person. I was always a movie person. Now I'm a film person. I'm kind of in between. I like both, but it's like there's movies and then there's films. And then there's flicks, too, but we won't talk about that because those are, like, B-movie stuff. And I have also gravitated toward falling in love with certain directors and the way that they do things. In this particular case, there is a ton of Orson Welles stuff I have not seen yet. I have become a big fan of Orson Welles thanks to Citizen Kane, Touch of Evil, and a number of his other films. A Love F for Fake. It's so underrated. But I have never seen The Lady from Shanghai from 1947. I believe that was the right year. And it's a neo-noir mystery with Wells. And he stars in it. He wrote it. He directed it. It showed at the Brattle 2 or 3 times in the last 10 years, and we've never gotten out there to see it. But I'm very much interested in catching up on all the Orson Welles stuff, and I figure if I do one a year, I'll be good. I'll have to commit to one a year, although... I'd like to see all of them. I haven't seen The Trial. I haven't seen Mr. Arkadin or The Stranger, any of those smaller films that the real, true film buffs know him for, not like the ones that everybody knows, like The Magnificent Ambersons and Citizen Kane and so on. So this one is one of the ones that everybody knows him for, and many critics have said it was his finest performance. So we'll see. Number 4, The Lady from Shanghai.
Okay. Number 3 on my list. Now, the first 2 films on my list that I mentioned are considered more of the modern classics. This film at number 3 is an actual classic.
Okay.
The number 3 film that I want to see this year all the way through is Arsenic and Old Lace.
I almost put that on my list because Peter Lorre's in it, and I love Peter Lorre.
Cary Grant. The story...
Didn't you sat down and started to watch it not all that long ago, too?
No, I know, but it
was on Turner Classic, and we had to do something.
Yeah, something happened and I couldn't finish it.
We've fallen in love with Turner Classic over the last couple of years. It's got all kinds of cool stuff on there.
The story of 2 sweet old ladies that open up their house as kind of a boarding house to lonely old men whom they poison with elderberry wine and then bury in the cellar. It's a story, and that sounds like some very grim material, but this is a comedy, and it's a screwball comedy at that. It's just such a weird idea, it started life as a stage play and then became a classic, well-loved film, and I prefer my Cary Grant with a little bit more of a kind of wackiness to him, because he could do that really well. I mean, a lot of people know him for, very serious films and romantic leads.
He was
and all
one of those
stuff.
actors that could do a little bit of everything without a problem. He could be funny. He could be serious, like North by Northwest, which we're going to go see when Turner Classic runs it later this spring at the Fathom Events thing. And It's going to be, he's an interesting choice for any kind of leading man.
He was, I think so, because he's definitely one of those kind of people that didn't seem to have a problem with the idea of making themselves look stupid on film. Taking the pratfall and pie in the face kind of stuff. It just is such a weird concept for a movie, and I'm like, I've heard about this movie all my life, and I've never seen it.
We actually read the teleplay when I was in English class when I was in high school. Yeah.
Oh, I wish we'd been that progressive. My number 3, Arsenic and Old Lace.
That's a good choice. I'll watch that with you too. This one I'm going to ask you to watch with me, but you don't have to.
All right.
Because I know you haven't seen it, but it's an interesting idea. I was looking for stuff to put on this list, and I naturally gravitated toward directors who I tend to like most of the time. And I came across this one, and although I've seen a number of his films, and only one of them has really disappointed me. I like most of the other ones, and I really love one. There's something about the way that this is set up that really kind of intrigued the hell out of me. It's a classic horror story from Hollywood, done in modern. I'm trying to figure out how to describe this film, because I bet you've you've never even heard of it. I'd never heard of it, so I looked it up the other day, and I'm like, this is going to be interesting. It's a horror story. Classic horror story taken from a classic horror novel that has been made with so many different people in the lead role. It is done in dance performance in this film with a setup to be shot like it was a silent film, which should tell you that the director is Canadian auteur Guy Maddin. The movie is called Dracula: Pages from a Virgin's Diary. And I have to describe this to you. I'm going to pull up the Wikipedia page because this is really out there. Pages from a Virgin's Diary was made in 2002, directed by Guy Maddin. It was originally produced for the CBC. It's a dance film documenting a performance by the Royal Winnipeg Ballet adapting Bram Stoker's Dracula. Maddin elected to shoot the dance film in a fashion uncommon for such films through close-ups and jump cuts, but also stayed close to the material of Stoker's novel, emphasizing xenophobia and the reactions of the main characters to Dracula, played in this version by Zhang Wei Klein.
That sounds fascinating.
And it's like Maddin's films. It's done silent film tradition, title cards, mimicking special effects of the era. This is something he's really good at.
He is.
And we have loved, I love Saddest Music in the World. And you and I both liked My Winnipeg and Brand Upon the Brain. The only thing we've been really terribly disappointed with was Keyhole. Mm-hmm. And we have to see the Forbidden Room before Clitridis Awards this year because it's on Vandor now. We haven't watched it yet. But I'm just very interested in. It sounds like what you might get if you mix Dracula with Pina. I'm like, okay, I'm game. Dracula, Pages from a Virgin's Diary from Guy Maddin, 2003. It's the newest of the 5 films on my list I want to see this year.
That really does sound interesting. That does. I'd definitely watch that. All of your films I'd watch with you, I think. I'd
Yay! Yeah. Well, you've seen Beauty and the Beast.
Yeah, so. Yeah, and I loved it. I'd watch it again in a second. Number 2 on my list is the most recent film on my list, but that doesn't make it a terribly recent film, to be honest with you. And I have a feeling I don't know how to word this. I have a feeling I'm setting myself up to be disappointed.
Oh, okay.
Because I've heard about, people have been talking about this movie pretty much since it came out. And, a lot of people talked about it as being so amazing and and so on, etc., so on, yada, yada, flambe. Mm-hmm. And I was like, okay, all right. And it has some really great people in it. But what I've heard of it, I'm like, good grief, this sounds pretentious.
It's not Miranda July, is it?
No.
Okay.
My number 2 is American Beauty.
Ah, yes, we were talking about that the other day. Yeah. Okay.
I have never seen this film. It's just, I know that it's a story of a guy who basically decides that his life, so far the way he's been living in it,
sucks,
and he wants to find something more meaningful in life. Most guys just go out and get a Corvette and a hot blonde, but so, and it's got a terrific cast: Annette Bening, Kevin Spacey, Thora Birch, all these really Wes Bentley. Well, all these amazing people. So I'm either going to be like, wow, I totally see what everybody else sees, or I'm going to be like, well, that's 2 hours I can't get back.
I know.
One of the two, I have a feeling. So my number 2, American Beauty.
I'll watch it with you because I haven't seen it either, and I've heard a lot of hype. Okay, my top 2 films, I'm going way back into the classics mode because I want to see both of them, and I know you've seen one of them, but I'm not sure about the other one.
All right.
The one at number 2 is the most intriguing of all of them because it's got what I love. It's got action, it's got romance, it's got adventure, it's got a big disaster. It's got a little bit of everything in it, and I've never seen it. I know the song that Bertie Higgins had a hit with based on the movie, that he got the lyrics and stuff right out of the movie. But I have never seen Key Largo, and it is a classic. Humphrey Bogart and
I've never seen it either,
whole bunch of people in it. Edward G. Robinson is in it, and it's the story of a wartime vet coming to give information about his buddy from the war to his family. He didn't make it through the war, and they live down on Key Largo, and they get caught in this big hurricane that's coming in,
and there's gangsters,
and escape prisoners and stuff.
And it's Bogart. You don't need to know anything else. That's it. Done.
I love Humphrey Bogart, what I've seen of him. I've never been disappointed by anything I've ever seen him in. Now, I haven't seen some of the crap he did earlier on, but I always, I can sit anytime, any day of the week. If Casablanca is running on Turner Classic, I will turn it on and watch it because I love that movie. I love Casablanca, and I love everything else I've seen him in. It was either this one or The African Queen, which my mother loves. But I went with this one because it's, like I said, it's got a little bit of everything, and the story sounds intriguing. I was reading the Wikipedia thing about it and doing research for something, and it sounds like a lot of fun and a lot of great action. And it was one of the top films of its year. So number 2, Key Largo with Bogey. So what's your number 1, dear?
My number 1 film that I haven't seen that I am going to see this year is a film that I know you've seen because you've talked about it and talked about it and talked about it as being a great film. And I've seen parts of it in other things, which is weird. I've seen parts of it set
in clip movies.
No,
okay.
Actually. No, well, for the longest time, I thought it was a silent movie. I was like, oh, wait, this has sound? Okay. Stupid me. And I've seen part of the film because it was used by somebody when they used it and songified it. My number 1 is The Great Dictator. I am really deeply ashamed I have never seen this movie and that I didn't know that it was a talkie. Bad me.
I watched it about 6 years ago for the first time.
Mm-hmm. Starring Charlie Chaplin as a tailor. I think he's a tailor. Mm-hmm. Who is the double for a despot ruling over a country that seems like he's awfully familiar for some reason. I wonder who he's supposed to be. Let's dream. What I've seen of it, it looks really interesting. I mean, it's got Chaplin's usual slapstick kind of stuff to it. Mm-hmm. But there's also, from what I've understood, there's real deep pathos in it as well.
At the end, especially, yeah.
And I'm really interested in seeing that, since I've seen, ironically enough, the end of the movie.
The end of the movie is a great speech that was musified by Melody Sheep a couple years ago called "Let Us All Unite."
Yeah,
phenomenal, good job on that.
Yeah, and boy, is that truer than ever
It
before.
is, yeah.
My number one film that I'm going to see this year, damn it, The Great Dictator.
That was actually one of my original resolution films. That's why I watched it, and it's an awesome film. My number one is something that I know you've seen, because you've told me how great a movie it is. My mother loved this. My grandmother loved this movie. And I have never seen it. And I think it's high time I do, because it's considered a classic, and it's quotable everywhere. And so I guess I'm ready to say, I'm ready for my close-up, Mr. DeMille. My number one is Sunset Boulevard. I've never seen this film. Gloria Swanson, William Holden, right?
Yes.
And I'm my mother was a huge fan of this film. And you are a huge fan of this film.
And Carol Burnett is obviously a huge fan of this film.
Yeah.
If you don't get that, go back and watch Carol Burnett and Friends.
Or get the DVD sets that are coming out, because everything's there. The story of an aging actress and slowly losing her mind, and the young boy toy she's taken up with.
Yeah. Who tells her at one point, "You're Norma Desmond. You used to be big." And her response is, "I am big. It's the pictures that got small." I can't do Gloria Swanson
I think of
justice,
this now also because they're getting ready to revive the Andrew Lloyd Webber musical on Broadway, and Glenn Close is coming back to do it too, which I thought was interesting. And I feel bad because Gloria Swanson, I've seen in a few things over the years. But I know her best from Airport 75, which is just terrible. It was her final film. She played herself, and I feel bad for her for going out that way, because she was such a legendary star. But, I mean...
I hear you, but 2 words, man, Veronica Lake.
I know. Veronica Lake was worse.
Seriously.
So, one of these days this year, we will sit down and watch Sunset Boulevard.
I'd love to watch it again. It's a great movie.
And I can't wait to see it again, for the first time, really, actually, because I've never seen it, obviously.
Okay.
Okay, so, now... Those are our 5 films that we promised to see this year. Mine were Beauty and the Beast, The Lady from Shanghai, Dracula, Pages from a Virgin's Diary, Key Largo, and Sunset Boulevard.
Okay. And the films that I am going to see this year, I'm going to make a real effort.
Yep.
The Cook, The Thief, His Wife and Her Lover, and Bob and Carol and Ted and Alice. No,
that's an entirely different movie.
No. Okay.
And I've seen that. You're not missing anything.
El Mariachi, Arsenic and Old Lace, American Beauty, and The Great Dictator.
Now we get to have some fun. We've each picked 5 movies we want our partner to see that we've seen and loved, or liked enough to Misty, and we're going to get them to watch it this year.
Yes.
I have an advantage. She just mentioned one in her top 5 of my list, and one of the other ones we already have tickets to see. So it's like, I'm going to make sure that you're going to get to see these. Right?
Okay.
So why don't you start?
All right. My first film.
We're going to put a caveat on this.
Yeah.
There are actually 6 films. Kim and I made an agreement a couple of weeks ago.
Actually, mine is on this list. So.
Oh, you put it on the list?
Yeah.
Okay, then never mind. I'll wait till we're done.
All right. My first film is a film that I don't even know why I watched. To be perfect.
And you want me to see it?
Well, if I got infected with the weird, you have to get infected with the weird.
Oh, it's one of those. Okay.
Seriously, I watched this film. To this day, I don't know why I watched it. Other than the fact that the title kind of intrigued me, and I was like, okay, this is either going to interest me. I was like, I'll give it 5 minutes, and if it doesn't interest me, I'm going to shut it off. Well, it interested me. Even though by the end of it, I was like, wow, I feel really uncomfortable right now. My number 5 is a film called Kill by Inches. I have
no idea what this film is.
Okay. That's cool. Nobody else does. I don't know if anybody else saw it other than me. And the people who were in it while they were filming it. It's the story of a tailor. It's an independent film. It's the story of a tailor who is a good tailor. He's not exceptional, though. His sister is an exceptional tailor. And they have a very contentious relationship, and stuff goes horribly wrong, and it's somebody obviously went to the David Lynch School of Directing when they directed this movie.
Oh, grand. Thank you.
And if
Wonderful.
if I have to have brain cramps, You have to have brain
But
cramps.
I do that with Guy Madden. It's not fair that you make me suffer through Lynchian stuff.
Well,
Although I like some of David Lynch's stuff, so it depends.
My number 5, Killed by Inches.
Who's in it? Do you know?
No.
Okay.
Still haven't. I don't remember anybody from the cast. It's terrible.
My number 5 is a film I put on here strictly so you can have fun misseeing it, because it is one of the worst disaster films ever made.
Oh, jolly.
I enjoy disaster films. They're fun. They're goofy. I've always been kind of a connoisseur of them. But even Irwin Allen strikes out from time to time, and 1980's When Time Ran Out is one of the worst ever. I had not seen it for 25 years when it showed up on HBO or Starz or one of those about 3 or 4 years ago, one Sunday morning, and I'm like, holy cripes, I'm going to sit down and watch this and see if it is as bad as I remembered. Sat there, laughed myself sick for 2 hours. I'm like, oh my God. How he got Paul Newman, Jacqueline Bisset, James Franciscus, Burgess Meredith.
Is OJ in that one?
No, OJ's not. OJ's not in any of Irwin's. Oh, yes, he is. He's in
in
one.
the gallery in front of
Yeah.
him.
This is about the big Hawaiian luxury resort about to be wiped out by a killer volcano. Trust me, you will be in hysterics because it is so bad, it's funny. And I mean, this is one of those grand ones where you can... every year for the last several years on Subject Cinema, we put ourselves through masochistic march. Kim sat through The Swarm last year. Trust me, once you've gotten through The Swarm, nothing is a problem. This will not be a problem because The Swarm is horrible.
The Swarm is horrible. Avalanche is worse.
Oh, okay. Fair enough.
And I sat through that, too.
Yeah. My number
You're
5
welcome.
that I'm going to get Kim to watch this year, Irwin Allen's When Time Ran Out from 1980.
Okay. Number 4 on my list is a film that is one of my favorite films. I've brought it up over and over again. I can quote it pretty well. And it's from one of my favorite directors. And it is a film that TC has never seen all the way through. And he's going to this year. Mm-hmm. And then I'm probably going to hear about it for weeks on end.
Which is?
My number 4 is the 1960 version of Psycho.
Okay. We did make an agreement the other day. We were sitting talking. I don't remember how we got into the discussion about Hitchcock movies, but we were sitting watching Turner Classic.
I watched
I
that
had
movie,
said,
The Girl. I watched
oh,
that,
that's right. You were and I said, you know, you're always saying this, and we tried to get to Psycho when it ran at Fathom Events during our vacation, but none of the theaters down on the Cape were running it except in Plymouth, and it was too hard to get to. So I made her a deal. I'm going to watch Psycho this year, and she's going to watch The Birds. She's never seen The Birds.
Nope.
I love The Birds. And so...
I wasn't allowed to see it when I was a kid.
I wasn't either.
You know.
But you were allowed to see Psycho when you were a kid?
No.
I don't think so.
No, but my parents, my mother's whole thing was she knows how tender-hearted I am about animals.
Right. I've seen enough.
She was always like, it'll upset you too much.
I've seen enough of Psycho to know that it's a fantastic film.
Yeah.
I'm just, there is actually a movie that, it's one of the big talked about movies at Sundance which starts as we're playing this. It started today. Remember the movie that came out a couple years ago, Room 204? It was all about The Shining.
247, yeah.
240, or whatever it was.
Right.
There is a movie called 7453, I think it's called /53. The entire film is analyzing the shower scene from Psycho at the hands of Guillermo del Toro and a whole bunch of popular directors.
I can't wait to see that.
That's going to be interesting, and yes, I will see that. I promised you I would.
Psycho is one of the best examples of... I mean, everybody knows the story. Even if you've never seen the movie, you know the story. But it's one of the best examples of how to do a great thriller. Mm-hmm. Because it's not a horror movie. I don't care what
it's not a horror
says.
movie. There's no supernatural element to it.
It's not a horror movie. So my number 4 that you're going to watch this year...
I will.
1960s Psycho. I love you too much to put you through the remake.
And number 4... is the movie that you've already mentioned, The Great Dictator. I have this on my list for number 4 because I had seen it and I enjoyed it so much, and I want you to share it with me.
Yeah, definitely.
And I'd love to see it again. I found it to be... I'm not a slapstick person.
No, you're not.
I like light slapstick occasionally. Like Marx Brothers, I don't mind. They're funny. But you don't.
You're not into the Three Stooges
or Keystone Cops, anything like that.
High fight, hitting people with 2x4s.
Although I do like the kind of slapstick that you get in movies like Some Like It Hot, and those are great. Mm-hmm. The Great Dictator is one of those types of films, and Charlie Chaplin is amazing in this film. It's funny as hell. It's poignant at the end. The speech, melodized by Melody Sheep, is brilliant, although it does kind of lean toward his political leanings, which were kind of communistic in the way he was thinking. But it's still a powerful speech, and it's beautifully shot. And if you've never seen it, it's worth it. Mm-hmm. So we will definitely sit down and take in The Great Dictator this year sometime.
Definitely. I'm all for that. Excuse me. My number 3 is, which actually should come as a surprise to nobody, a foray into the horror genre. Don't panic. But it's a very special horror film because it's taking a very established character and taking a different viewpoint. My number 3 is a film called The Curse of Frankenstein.
Oh, I don't mind Frankenstein movies.
This is one of the I believe it's a Hammer. I'm pretty sure
that's the Christopher Lee one,
yes,
right?
it is.
I've seen clips of this. It looks interesting.
Peter Cushing plays Dr. Victor Frankenstein, and Christopher Lee is the being that he puts together from corpses. Mm-hmm. Now, because the Universal Studios owns the makeup rights to the Frankenstein monster, the look that everybody knows, that Karloff made famous, done, of course, by Jack Pierce. The whole flat top head.
Look.
The whole flat top head, bolts in the neck, Herman Munster sort of deal.
Yeah.
Because they owned that, obviously they couldn't use that look, so they had to come up with something different.
They did, too.
And the
really
the look they came up with, in my opinion, is way more scary than the Universal look. And the reason that this film is on my list is because not only is the makeup job amazing, it's also on my list because I feel like this film actually shows who the real monster is. And it's not the creature that's sewn together from dead body parts. Peter Cushing is absolutely mesmerizing in this role. For someone who could play everything, and I mean everything.
Oh, he did, too.
He was in Hamlet. He was Sherlock Holmes.
He came back to life in Rogue One.
All the way up through Grand Moff Tarkin. And everything, and a little bit of everything in between. I don't think he was ever more frightening than he was as Dr. Frankenstein, because in his movies, for the most part, there was one film where he was almost kind of heroic. In these films, he's the real monster. I mean, you've got this guy lumping around that's all sewn together, bits of dead people, but
see, that's the whole point of Frankenstein anyway. The monster isn't the person created. He can't help what he is. Right. It's the person that did the creating that's kind of loony. Yeah. And the townspeople, they don't think of it that way. They see, Karloff's character, gray, green makeup, the bolts, all that stuff. Yeah. Christopher Lee's is even more frightening. So that's why they freak out, even though they're not thinking after. I mean, I'm sure he's not going to have an intelligent tea time conversation, but still,
So my number 3, The Curse of Frankenstein.
Mm-hmm. I like that. That'll be fun.
Cool.
My number 3 is a movie that I know we'll get to see because I don't have tickets yet, but I'm getting tickets because it's coming to the Dockyard this year, and I want Kim to see it. I loved it. It was my Best Picture documentary winner in 2015, and it is coming to the Brattle as part of the Dockyard with the director in attendance, and I don't want to miss it, happening on February 13th. The movie is The Russian Woodpecker. This film tells the story of an artist who is convinced that Chernobyl was a deliberate act. And it is an absolutely terrifying story, and what makes it terrifying is that his theories are plausible. Extremely plausible. I was have been fascinated by this whole thing since I saw this film. You can go over to Wikipedia and look up the history of the Duga radio tower, which is where it is, and what they were doing with it, and how it worked, and what it was really for, and what they did with it, and why it's only like 20. It's not even 20 kilometers from Chernobyl, and what happened. Why this artist seems to think that what happened at Chernobyl was a deliberate attempt to cover up the fact that this thing didn't work ever. Right. You have to see it.
I would like to see this because
it's you can get it on Netflix, but I mean, it's worth seeing in the theater.
Right. You and I know some of our listeners out there are younger than us. Hey y'all.
Most of them probably
and don't remember the Chernobyl disaster, or maybe remember it very faintly.
They remember it as history.
Yeah.
We lived through it. We remember it. Yeah.
And it was like, what do you mean it exploded? What do you mean there's a big cloud of radiation?
We've had one here in America do that too that nobody really talks about. So,
but I'd like to see that. Yeah, that's cool. I'm all up for that.
Yeah, because I can't wait. Because Chad Gracia, the director,
documentaries. I should have.
The director Chad Gracia will be at this screening on February 13th, and I cannot wait to see this.
My number 2 is a movie that I actually did not get to see until I was in my teens or 20s. I don't remember. This was another one that my mother was like, "You're not watching that," which, of course, made me want to see it all the more, because that's the quickest way to get me to do something is to tell me don't do it.
Okay.
It is. I think she didn't want me to see it for a number of different reasons. One of them is because there are some scenes.
Is this the one that I have told you over and over and over again that I am not interested in seeing this film?
That would depend. Is it Whatever Happened to Baby
Yes,
Jane?
I am not watching this film with you. I'm sorry. I will not watch that film. But go ahead and tell me why you want me to see it.
Okay. Well, for one thing, I think it would be interesting to see, since we're both very interested in seeing Feud. Feud is a upcoming series done by the same people that did American Crime Story, and it is looking at the feud between Hollywood megastars Bette Davis and Joan Crawford that went on for
years.
Yeah.
Glenn Close and Jessica Lange and Julianne Moore. Is that right?
I don't remember.
Playing them? I've forgotten who it is.
Whatever Happened to Baby Jane is based on a novel, I found out. And it tells the story of two sisters living in seclusion in a house in California. Jane Hudson was a vaudeville star back when vaudeville existed. Go ask your grandparents.
At this point, great-great-grandparents.
Ow.
Sorry.
She was a child star, and her older sister Blanche was in the background and ignored. As they got older, their fortunes reversed. Blanche became a big movie star, and Jane, once she wasn't the cute little girl anymore, people realized she can't act. And now these two women are living in the house alone. By now, Blanche is in a wheelchair and Jane is off her rocker. I think it's an amazing film. If you don't want to see it, fine. But I do think watching it before we see Feud is a good idea, simply because you can actually, if you watch Whatever Happened to Baby Jane, you can actually see these women hate each other. I mean, honest to blog, hate each other.
Betty didn't have a lot of friends, you notice.
No.
You brought that up today when looking up the Whales of August and found out Lillian Gish didn't get along with her either.
No. But, Joan Crawford wasn't a walk in the park either.
No,
I
haven't.
So, I mean, when you have the immovable...
It depends. Are you putting your clothes on wire hangers? Or is it,
When you have the immovable force meeting the irresistible object,
Right.
Something's going to go boom.
Okay.
So, my number 2, Whatever Happened to Baby Jane.
I may sit through it alone. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know.
All right.
I've told you about that. But I owe you because I forced you to see E.T. even though you didn't want to see it. So all those years ago. My number 2 is a movie that I picked because we were talking about it the other day, and you expressed interest in seeing it. And because you haven't seen it. And it has an all-star cast, and it does have misseeable elements. But on the whole, it is still the only disaster film ever nominated for Best Picture. And it deserves to be, the only big-budget disaster film nominated for Best Picture of its type. 1974's The Towering Inferno.
Yeah, I would watch that, yeah.
It is a great film.
I'm surprised you watched it, though, because you have this thing about
There's
heights.
not a lot of it. You can't see a lot of stuff. At least not... It's dark. You see a little bit of stuff here and there. And I've only seen it on TV. I've never seen it on the big screen. So it does not affect me. I have a weird effect of heights, even on movie screens. I could not see The Walk. I wanted to, but I couldn't. You loved it.
I loved it, but it was making me nauseous.
And I can't see anything that's huge. The Towering Inferno is basically biggest building in the world catches on fire in multiple places, trying to get everybody out.
And then it goes up like a tinderbox. I mean, it's
not that bad, but it's like there's little stories interspersed, and it's got Paul Newman, Steve McQueen, Fred Astaire, William Holden. No, is that right? No, not William Holden. The other guy. No, that's right. William Holden. Yeah. I was thinking Robert Mitchum, but no, it's William Holden, Richard Chamberlain, Robert Wagner, O.J. Simpson, a number of other people, and it's
Bobby
really
from the Brady Bunch.
And but Michael McLean is in it too. Susan Flannery from The Bold and the Beautiful.
Would it be fair to say that this film is kind of like I love you, but the building's burning down? You know, there's like all these little stories.
It's
that are
a love boat
in.
story.
Yeah.
Big,
by the way, the building's going up in flames. You know,
I do make a mistake. The Airport was nominated for Best Picture too, but Airport was such a claustrophobic one plane thing. This is a gigantic, huge, 130-story tall building, something like that, and it's beautiful to look at. And they did a great job with the miniatures. But it was the very first film co-produced by 2 major studios. That had never happened before. And Warner Brothers and MGM, I think it was, went together for this. Or Warner Brothers and somebody went together on it, and they'd never done that before. And it was that expensive for the time, 1974. And it was the biggest grossing film of the year, and it deserved to be. It was a fantastic little, scary, suspense-filled thriller. Yeah. And it isn't as bad as some of the other disaster movies that you've sat through. You've sat through Airport 75. You've sat through Avalanche. You've sat through the Concorde. God knows you deserve a medal for that. This is nowhere near that bad. Number 2, The Towering Inferno.
All right. My number 1 is a film that hopefully you're not going to get mad at me that I put on this list. It combines 2 things that I really, really love. Horror movies and anthologies, because I have a very short attention. Ooh, shiny object. My number 1 is a movie called Asylum. It is an anthology series from 1972, and it is the story of a psychologist who is trying to get a job at an asylum in England, and he's told by the asylum director that the person that he is taking, the person who had his job originally, is now a patient in the asylum. And if he can guess which of the 4 patients used to be Dr. Starr, the person he's replacing, he'll be considered for the application. And the rest of the film is each patient telling their own story of how they got here. Written by Robert Bloch, the gentleman that wrote Psycho. It's not really a very gory film at all, really. There's very little blood. It's just this kind of weird, little, creepy, fun kind of film. There's a lot of British actors in it that you're like, hey, it's that guy. Hey, I know that person from somewhere. It's fun, but it's one of these films. It's kind of on my, I don't know if you're going to want to sit through it, and if you don't, that's cool. But my number 1, Asylum.
Well, obviously not if you put it at number 1.
Well, I put it at number 1 because it's the first thing I thought of.
Oh.
Ta-da.
Well, I will give you the fact that you were correct about Halloween, which I really liked. So I was stunned that I actually enjoyed that film so much. So it's like, okay, we'll see. My number one is a lot more esoteric than that, and definitely not picking stuff that I've gone out of my way to pick stuff that would not offend or make you uncomfortable.
I didn't think this would make you uncomfortable.
No. That's not what I mean. But I did find this one fascinating, and I again sat through this because of our original resolutions list, and it was Roger Ebert's Best Picture of 1983, and I was like, or 82, I forget which, or 81, somewhere in the early 80s. Mm-hmm. But I was fascinated with it when I watched it, and I was stunned that I actually liked it quite a bit. And I haven't seen it since then, 10 years ago or so, and I think it's high time you join me for my dinner with Andre.
Yeah, I definitely do need to see that.
Starring Wallace Shawn and, I'm sorry, Andre Gregory? Yes, Andre Gregory. Mm-hmm. Telling stories over a dinner in New York of what they've been doing, their old friends, and they're basically playing versions of themselves. It's just a dinner conversation, and it's fascinating. The stories that Andre Gregory tells to Wallace Shawn are mind-blowing, and there are little bits and interstitials here and there, but a lot of it is really interesting and intriguing, and the emotions that come out are interesting and intriguing. Wallace Shawn, I think, is perhaps one of the most underrated actors of his generation. He is, I mean, everybody, when you say the name Wallace Shawn or you see his picture, one word comes to mind: inconceivable! He is always going to be remembered for The Princess Bride.
Yep.
And that's a shame because he's a brilliant playwright. He's a brilliant actor. He does so much good stuff outside of that. And this movie was fascinating.
Even though he's awesome in that movie.
He is awesome in Princess Bride, which is actually not a half bad film. It's not as good as I'd hoped it would be, but it's not a half bad film. I'm not the huge culty person like some people are with it. But I do like it. And this one I actually really thought it was intelligent and funny and absorbing. It goes by very quickly. Mm-hmm. And then there are some moments when it seems interminable because it's the way that it's supposed to be. The details of each story that is being told by the two men.
Right.
And I don't know why that was one of those eye-opening experiences when I was like, I'm going to get this. I'm going to get it from Netflix. I'm going to be bored to tears. But Ebert loves it and all the critics love it. And damned if I didn't enjoy it a lot. I'm really surprised. And I think you will too, because you like intelligent films that make you think, that put a little spin on things. And this definitely does that.
Oh, yeah.
So my number one film I'm going to get Kim to see this year is My Dinner with Andre.
Cool. Yeah, I'd definitely see that because I know how much you liked it. Mm-hmm. So I think if you liked it that much, maybe I should give it a try and see how much I like it.
So the 5 films that I'm going to get Kim to see this year are When Time Ran Out from 1980, Irwin Allen disaster schlock, The Great Dictator.
That's from 1980?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know why I thought it was earlier than that.
No, that was his last big feature film, 1980. Oh. The Great Dictator from 1940 with Charlie Chaplin, The Russian Woodpecker from 2015, Power Inferno from 1974, and My Dinner with Andre, I think, was 1981.
Okay. And my list of the films that I want TC to see, which he doesn't have to if he doesn't really want to.
No. We're not going to do that. These are the ones you're supposed to try and talk me into.
I don't know.
You have to sell me really hard on 2 of them.
I know. Kill by Inches, the 1960 version of Psycho, The Curse of Frankenstein, Whatever Happened to Baby Jane, and Asylum.
I think you'll have an easier time convincing me to watch Jane than you will Asylum, but we'll see. Because I love Bette Davis and Joan Crawford's okay. So, and Victor Buono's in it. So
yes.
He's awesome.
I believe that was his first screen role,
it was his first big role,
Yeah.
So these are interesting lists. Mm-hmm. This will be fun. I'm not even sure what Kill by Inches is, but it sounds intriguing. So we'll go
it's
from
weird.
there. And
a total head
and of course
trip.
you also had the birds on your list.
Yeah.
So you put the Psycho on your list, but that's
Remember what Kill by Inches is for tailors, what Black Swan was for ballet dancers.
oh goody. Okay, so
Unfortunately, without Natalie Portman.
or anyone else from that film, Mila Kunis or Vincent Castle.
I know.
Okay. So
So,
your pick.
yes.
Unless we get a list, please send us in your list ideas at frontrow@PNRNetworks.com. And if we use it, you'll get your name on the show, full credit, and maybe a prize.
Okay. My next list for us is going to be I think it's going to be kind of an intriguing list to see what we come up with.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be a top 10 list for next week. Our top 10 from movies or TV or books, I suppose. Top 10 favorite robots or mechanized characters.
Oh, okay. So the ones that are appearing, as long as they're robot, android, or anything to do with that stuff.
Robot, android, cyborg.
Artificial intelligence movies.
Computer that has an AI. Mm-hmm. That kind of a thing.
Okay.
From movies, TV,
Books, or anything else.
books, comic books, whatever you want to do.
Okay, that sounds fun. I should have no problem with that.
Okay.
I can think of like 6 of them right off the top of my head. Cool. All right, so here's what we got going on. We hope you'll continue to listen to all of our shows, not just Front Row 5 and 10. Subject Cinema every Sunday evening, doing movie reviews, news, all that stuff. Mm-hmm. I feel bad because we forgot to do the Golden Globes last week. We forgot to give the nominations or the winners, and we should have. And
we'll definitely give the People's Choice Awards
this week and the Golden Globes because we forgot about them. Plus, we got reviews of some stuff coming up. Check out our preview shows, which are Friday 3-Minute Weekend, which is the film show where we cover all the films coming out in theaters in the U.S., and Tuesday Digidex, Tuesdays, all the films coming out on DVD, Blu-ray, on-demand streaming, Netflix, and Amazon Prime, which you just added this year. And Amazon Prime is a bitch to find everything, too. Starting in February 1st, we'll have a brand new show on Wednesday nights, hosted by moi. I hope you will enjoy it. I will have the formal announcement on our Patreon website on Friday. If you want to hear the announcement the first couple of days, you got to be a Patreon supporter. We hope you'll join our Patreon campaign. Great perks available for you, starting at just $2 a month for recurring donations to help us out with some equipment issues, some bills, and take care of everything and get going and bring you the best possible coverage we can, and continue to grow the shows and the sites and everything else. If you like our show, if you like any of our shows, take a couple minutes, go over to patreon.com/PNRNetworks and donate. $2 to $100. There's all kinds of different perks in between, and we think they're pretty cool. And we got a couple of new ones coming in February. Platinum Rose's Garden will be back also on the 26th, right?
Yes. My show, Platinum Rose's Garden, is a supernatural podcast where I talk about that week's episode of Supernatural. Right now I'm on hiatus because the show is in reruns right now. I will be back next week with episode 9 of season 12. It is entitled First Blood.
They're only on episode 9 and they've been on since October?
Yeah.
Jeez. These people move slow. Honestly. Sorry. And then don't forget about Cavebabble with Eric and Valerie Lyon every weekend at cavebabble.com. They're also part of our network. Mm-hmm. And check out our websites all the time, too, because we got all kinds of interesting stuff happening over there. I have a brand new feature. We're going to call it Subject Cinema Classics. It's going to happen. It'll be up by the time you hear this tomorrow, as we're recording on Wednesday because I have a medical procedure tomorrow. But it's like going to pick an old Subject Cinema from the first 5 years and throw it up on SoundCloud and on the website. For those of you who may not have heard it, we're starting off with our show, a podcast about the guy from Pittsburgh who makes all those cool PBS documentaries. Mm-hmm. It's our salute to filmmaker Rick Seaback, including an interview with him. We had so much fun doing that, and I love his shows. And it showed. We got so much good mail about that show.
Did.
That you've got to hear it. If you've never heard it, it'll be available, for a week or so up on SoundCloud, and check it out. Mm-hmm. And spread the word about Subject Cinema on all of our shows and sites. We need all your love. Come give us a big hug. We'll give you a big hug back. We're that kind of people. Yeah. We're huggy people. Wouldn't you say?
I would say so, yeah.
So, that's going to do it for this week, though. We hope you've enjoyed our list, and we'd love to hear from you on your list, too. You got a list of 5 films that you would like us to see this year? Or a list of 5 films that you pledged to see this year? We'd love to read it on the show, so send it in to us, as well as your ideas for lists.
Definitely.
At front row at PNRNetworks.com.
Okay. And we hope we can count on you to help us count them up.
Thank you, Casey Kasem.
Look, at least I didn't talk about reaching for the stars and stuff. Okay?
True enough. We'll see you next week.
Bye.
You've been listening to Front Row 5 and 10 with Kim Brown and T.C. Kirkham.
Podcasting's choice. From coast to coast, continent to continent, right here 24/7.